you haven't met me, my name is Jonathan Lyle. I currently am your voice and your employee that serves on the Board of Supervisors. I so appreciate you folks coming out. I need to hear what you think we should be doing for you as county administrator. So your voice, your opinions, your insights are really, really important to us. I want to take a moment and just introduce some of the folks who are here. Our 5th District School Board member, Ellen Robinson, is here. She is at the door still greeting people. Ellen, just let folks see you so that they know our 5th District School Board member is here. I don't know if any of my colleagues from the board, Charlie, Neil, Jonathan, Tom, no other supervisors are here. I do want to recognize Karen Mersing is here from the school board also. Any other school board members here? Don't see any. We have our sheriff and strong contingent from this department, Sheriff Creasy. Thank you for being here. I know that is Chief Ferguson here? We've got still fire and rescue is well represented. Chief, thank you for being here. And Mr. Carpenter is going to introduce some of the county employees. I really can't start this tonight just taking a moment to say thank you to Kim Peterson, John White, and Tom Rockcharlie. For the last 12 years, they have been your representatives on the Planning Commission, School Board, and the Board of Supervisors. I feel particularly blessed that I'm coming into this position with a really strong foundation. And a lot of that is based on the effort and the energy that they put into their service to the county. So I'm very appreciative of it. If things are going well, it's because they did a great job. If it's screwing up, that's on me. So I'll leave it at that. Mr. Carpenter, if you want to take over as it's your slideshow. The end of this day, I do have my business cards out there. Please take one. I need to hear from you. Text, I'm a boomer, but I do text. I can't do email, and phone calls are very easy for me as well. So, thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Lyle. Good evening. I'm Vic Carpenter. I'm your county administrator. It's a great day in Goochland County. It is great to see all of y'all out here. You know, I tell people when they come to a meeting and it's a full house or a lot of people, and I look out and it may be something that the people are going to be passionate about. And there is no better feeling than to look out and see a room full of people who care. And I say that every time, and I mean it every time, because I've been places where you'd be talking significant events, and the room would be empty. And you knew major decisions were being made, and there was nobody there to witness it, to speak up, or to hear. So thank you for what you are doing tonight, which is being engaged, interested, and informed, and coming out here to join us tonight. We've got a number of county staff with us as well. I'm going to try to, gosh, or something. We're going to start with Chief Gordon, Fire Marshal Davies, Ms. Hillman, our emergency director. We've got Mr. Cock, our Parks and Rec director. We have sheriff staff. We've got Mr. Drumright, who is our public affairs. We have Dan, our IT. We have our Mr. Longshore, our utilities director. We have Ms. Sorry?
I missed our clerk.
Oh, I'm sorry. Absolutely, our clerk of court is here. And she'll be speaking a few words at the end of this, too. Ms. Davies, our finance director. We have Ms. Sherry, our director of community development here. And if I'm looking around, I don't have glasses on or anything, so if I miss any county employees, I apologize. But they're here tonight for you as well. So what this is this is a town hall. The town hall for us this time of year is we just presented the budget to the board a few weeks back. Now we go out on the show and take our show on the road and tell our citizens what we're talking about. This is your chance to hear it, try to understand it. The budget is not adopted yet. The budget won't be in front of the board until the middle of April. So we've got, as you see, 4 town halls coming up. And then after that, we'll have a public hearing on the budget and then the actual vote for the budget in the middle of the month of April. So we'll be talking about the budget. Our superintendent of schools is here, Dr. Camardi. He'll be also talking about the schools and what they're doing. So we start with the budget, then let's go into what's going on in Goochland County, because when I start by saying it's a great day in Goochland County, it's a great day in Goochland County. I'm going to tell you some of the neat things that we're doing as we go along. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about is the budget. And for our budget, the process is an ongoing process. We listen to the residents. We really started building our budget in October of last year. From November to January, we met with departments, we met with our constitutional officers, we met with schools. We had work sessions with a variety of officials. We met with our board members to establish the priorities that go into the budget. Part of this is we've got a forecast. And we're meeting in October of 23, trying to forecast where we're going to be in June of 25. So we've got to anticipate what's going to come in revenue. We look at revenue, we look at all the revenue it takes to run a county. Your general property taxes, your other local taxes, state aid, federal aid, charges for services, fees, grants. Now, I know that those break down into general categories. At the end of the day, if you pay it, it's a tax. So that's how we understand that, it's the taxes that run this county that our citizens pay. So we're very careful about trying to understand where the money comes from. So looking at that, then we generally want to go back and to give you an idea of where we're coming from. So going back to this county, when you go back to our general fund expenses, which include our schools, going back to 2018, you see that we're about $50 million. From 2018 to 25, we've gone up about $89 million in total spending as we propose for this coming year. That's all county services. That's all county services, that's our schools, that's our public safety. So it's a significant investment that we make locally. Where are we going? Well, we start with what the board sets as their strategic plan. That's the basis for what we work off of. Again, we use a conservative estimate of where the money is going to come from and where we're going to spend money. We try always to underestimate our revenue and overestimate our spending so we don't ever want to end up in the red. That's what we don't do. We run a well, efficiently run financial operation here. We seek efficiencies, cost savings, but one of the goals that we've been given is to expand our public safety service levels, so this budget reflects that. Our board has set financial policy requirements that we follow, policies that require us to have minimum fund balance levels, policies that require us to have maximum amount of debts, policies that require us to do everything we can to maintain our AAA credit rating, which is one of only a few counties in all of America, the smallest county in America, to have 3 AAA credit ratings. We're tasked to maintain competitive employee compensation with our neighboring jurisdictions around us, and to support operations and grow where this county, which is a growing county, can justify it, and make sure that our utilities are self-sustaining and they're not a drain on the general taxpayers of the county. So when we're looking at this, we're trying to figure out, these are things that we take into account. The first thing is the impact of a recession. For 2 years now, we've been looking at this economy, wondering what's going to happen. What's going to happen? And we have to anticipate always the possibility of inflation coming and the possibility of a recession. We also know that our community wants our public safety to grow. So we keep that in front of us. We know as a community we're getting older. That's just the reality of it. Goochland County is one of the oldest counties in the Commonwealth of Virginia with an average age of a little over 60 years old. And so how do we reflect that in our increased calls for services? We know the desire to increase our support for public education. And also, we've got to look internally at the constantly increasing cost of health insurance. Health insurance costs for county employees are going up 11% this coming year. You all understand that feeling as well. So we try to keep all that in front of us. Again, we try to maintain a competitive aspect for our employee compensation. We've got much larger counties around us, and most of our employees, unfortunately, don't live in Goochland, so they live in other counties. So we know they're driving, in many cases, right by another place they could work, a school they could teach at, a county services building in order to get to Goochland. So we have to make sure that we're maintaining competitive aspects to that. And then at the end of the day, our General Assembly. Those of you who know the General Assembly and love them like we do, you might have seen today that they might have come to an agreement on spending. One of the things they're most famous for is unfunded mandates. They love to tell us what we're going to do, and then they don't give us the money how to do it. And then it's up to us to figure it out. So these are all things we've got to keep in front of us. I know I'm talking to Dr. Cromartie today. They have no idea what, if anything, the state's going to do for schools. They may do nothing. So right now we're getting toward the end stage of our budget, and they're still figuring out what they're going to do in a budget. So those are some of the dynamics we have to look at in building a budget. So the county's general fund in front of you, broken down as follows. Last year's budget that was adopted was for $141,411,148. And again, that's all funds, so that's our general fund. It's our general operations of the county, special revenue, utilities, schools, and our construction projects. Now, the current budget we're proposing is $134 million, about a drop of $7 million, a little over 5%. I won't tell you that the county has shrunk by 7%. The reality is, last year, you may remember, we began building the first new elementary school in 70 years in this county. An amazing structure, an amazing, really, feat that the residents or citizens approved with an 85% referendum rate of support for building it. Unfortunately, it cost more to build by the time it got around, so we had to add money to the budget last year to build it. So that's why it decreases, because last year we had to add money to the budget in order to be able to build the school that Dr. Martin's going to be telling you about, and it's going to be wrapping up pretty soon. I hope you've had a chance to drive by and see it. It's going to be an amazing addition to this county. Now, we break down where the money comes from, balanced budget, so we're going to be spending $134 million, we're going to bring in $134 million. And see, general property taxes about 11% more. Much of that is driven by growth in the community, but also part of the increased assessment values of properties. The average house assessment went up about 4.9%, and the rest came from adding in new growth, new buildings, new houses, vehicles, cars, things like that. Going down, you can see this where other money comes from. Again, proposed taxes, generally other local taxes, maybe our sales taxes, things like that. And on down to a total of about $134 million of total revenue to run Goochland County. Now, as I said, real estate values increased, total of 9.9%, but again, about 4.9 of that was existing property, and the remaining 5% came from new property being added to the tax rolls. People still want to live in Goochland County. Why? Because it's a great place to live. People are still moving here, people are still looking to build here, and this is a perfect example of that. Going on a little further, when we want to break down where it comes from, again, you see about 58% of the total revenue for the county comes from general property taxes. Again, you can break down state aid, other local taxes and fees, adds up to, again, $134 million. Now, of that 134, about 96 is the general fund. The general fund is the sheriff. The general fund is fire and rescue. The general fund is administration, finance. So when you get to that, you see that again, general property taxes are about 71% of our general fund. So we start getting more into the services that directly benefit and affect you as a citizen when you get to the general fund. Again, local property taxes, state aid, etc. Briefly about the schools, they'll talk more in detail, but the school's revenue is about $43.5 million. Again, your county taxes are about 68% of revenue that comes to the school. The state's about 23%. Now that's a story that we're not going to be able to get into too much tonight, but the lack of state aid for a county like Goochland is really a shame. And there's a whole conversation that we need to have with our delegates in Richmond over the way they treat Goochland County. Some counties get 80% of their revenue from the state of Virginia. We get 23% of our revenue from it. So I just point that out to you again. That's another story for another day, but it's an interesting fact to know that they treat us very differently here than they treat other counties in the state. So where does the money go? Well, general government itself is about 21% of the budget. Your judges, your judicial, the courthouse, about 16%. Public safety, about 17%. General services, you see about 11%. Health and human service, that's health department, DSS. Education, so on and so forth, all the way down to that. To again, about $134 million of it. Now, when we start giving you again the pie chart for that, about 33% of the total budget goes to education. About 20% goes to public safety. About 2% goes to judicial. General government is about 7%. Utilities show up in the total budget, but again, they don't come from tax dollars of your general house. If you're in the Tuckahoe Creek Service District, that's a different category. But the bulk of the revenue for utilities come from user fees, the people who are actually using the system itself. Then our CIP, those are the construction projects that we do. So from everything from building a fire station to buying a school bus, vehicles for the sheriff's deputies to work on a computer system. Everything in our CIP system is right there. It's about 6% of where we spend it. Once again, when we take out those external parts, we get into the general fund itself, about 60 million of that. Public safety now is up 46% of where your general fund goes. Your judicial services, 5%. So over 50% of your general fund budget goes for public safety. Then you get general government, again, 16%, general services, so on and so forth. And I will take questions, but, you know, so please think of your questions for that. Again, briefly on the schools, the way they break it down, instruction, 65%, those are your teachers and things like that. Operations and maintenance, the next biggest part. But again, Dr. Camardi will be able to give you a better understanding of how that works out. And then our capital improvement plan. Houston has a 25-year capital improvement plan. Most counties don't. They don't think that far in the future. We do. We update it every year. And I'll be honest with you, it's pretty significant. It's a $643 million plan for the next 25 years. That looks at schools. Again, just for building one school, we got 2 more elementary schools. That looks at fire stations. There's a new courthouse in there. There's work on a variety of from new roofs and HVAC systems. All the school buses are going to need this, everything it takes to run a county for 25 years. Again, education is a big part of that. Schools aren't cheap. We found out with this elementary school, and they're just going to get more expensive as it goes on. Unfortunately, we now have to build schools in ways we didn't have to build them 20 years ago. We have to build them in a safe and secure fashion that adds a significant amount of expense, but again, we're talking about children. So these are reflected in these aspects. Fire and rescue, again, very expensive. Moving from an all-volunteer system to a system that is career, and there will be more career, even though volunteers are critical to what we do, we still ultimately plan on having 9 stations at this point in the county. And as time goes on, the county will be more and more responsible for them. A lot of money goes into public safety in order to protect, to provide it for us. But 25 years is a long window, so we have a 5-year window we look at as well. And the 5-year window we look at is about $104 million coming up in the next 5 years. Again, schools are a big part of that. We have our new CTE program that we plan on building. We have a new courthouse. The courthouse alone is 25% of that. The schools are over 30% of that. Now, a lot of those funds we've already approved. Again, that 85% 15 referendum that passed, bond money will pay for that. So we know where the money's coming from for most of those expenses. Other expenses, we'll just, as we do, we'll budget for it, we'll plan for it, and we'll make sure that it happens. So to give you an idea of what we're talking about for CIP this coming year, I'm going to give you now kind of a breakdown of some of them. I'm not going to go into detail on each and every one of them, but you can see for public safety in this next year, we're looking at spending almost $3.7 million for engines, ambulances, land purchase for a new Station 2 down the road, medical supplies and equipment, sheriff's vehicles. That's the biggest part. Again, facilities. We're setting aside money towards that new courthouse. You know, life cycle repairs and maintenance. The administration building I'm in, I think, is built in the 1920s. Of course, our courthouse is built in the 1820s. Life cycle maintenance from roofs and HVAC systems, plumbing, new windows, replacing carpet. All that costs a lot of money, and there you see it. IT, information technology. If you follow any amount of news lately, you know that maintaining a critically safe infrastructure on our web, of our servers, of our mainframes, is important because of the data we have and what happens if the county gets hacked and taken over. So we constantly have to spend money to make sure that we have good security, good equipment, and that we're not in a situation where we can be vulnerable. And then school board. Again, schools are not inexpensive to maintain. You got these buildings, you got 6 buildings plus other aspects to it, so money for them. Total of almost $8 million this coming year we look to spend on capital projects. So that's kind of an overview of the budget. What have we done in this coming budget? Well, we're meeting and exceeding every financial objective and policy that our board has set. We're including a 5% cost of living increase for all county employees. Public safety, again, remains a priority. We're adding 16 new full-time positions to our public safety, an additional 5% salary increase for public safety as well. Education, again, a $2.2 million increase in local contribution and a $1.2 million for school CIP projects. We're also putting aside money for additional studies. As we grow, we need to understand the impacts of growth to make sure that we're able to do that. There's no increase in the real estate tax, the TCSD tax, or the personal property tax rate as well. So this is, again, a town hall meeting. You see March 7th tonight. We'll have 3 more town halls after this in different parts of the county to get the same conversation with our citizens. You're welcome to attend them all. We'd love to see people there. Then on April 2nd, as I said, we're going to have a public hearing on the budget. So that's a chance when the Board of Supervisors will be in full, and they're to listen to people to have any of their thoughts, concerns, kudos, upset, whatever about the budget they see. And then finally, on April 16th, the board, having heard everything and listened to you, will have a final budget adoption on that date. So that's the budget in a nutshell. So now what else is going on that's good in Goshen County? Well, you always got to start with puppies, all right? Puppies and kittens are always something we want to talk about. So the animal shelter is something we're quite proud about. I encourage you very much, go stop by there if you haven't been there lately. They are always having some of the neatest, cutest animals. Our hours again, Tuesday through Saturday, 10 a.m. pretty much to 2, 4, 7 o'clock p.m. This is a neat place. So I always like to put the animal shelter in just so people can see it. What else are we doing in the county? Well, let's start with broadband. Let's start with the infrastructure study. We used to call it SPEED, and now it's SIS, the Southeastern Infrastructure Study. And what this is a study kind of in the southeastern quadrant of the county, which is intended to give us a foundation, a guide to understanding what we need in the future for infrastructure, for our priorities there, what it's going to cost us, zoning and land use. You know, this is a study, it's not a plan. Some of you may have been part of the recent small area plans. This is kind of a preliminary to any possible plan in the future to better help the Board of Supervisors understand the impacts of growth. If you add this many houses, what is going to do to your roads? What's this going to do to your ability to respond to fire and emergency? What about our sheriff? What about our schools? What about our utilities? So this is the study to look at that. Again, we're looking at approximately 4,800 acres of land. You see the area is generally bounded by it, and we're going to look at roads, water, sewer, schools, fire and rescue, electricity too. And so we have a good understanding of what's going to be coming. Another part that some of y'all have seen, lived, and experienced is our utilities in this area, our force main replacement project. Again, right now we're about 70% complete. We should be mostly done by May with that project. The restoration work, as you see, through Wickham Glen neighborhood and along River Road will begin this spring. This was one of those, you can see that one picture of how little that man looks. This is a major project, the huge kind of things that you need to have 25-year plans for, so you don't have to do it on emergency on the fly. You know, you plan for it and you fix it when it needs to be fixed and replaced. Also, our Huguenot Hills Water and Sewer Project, again, bringing water and sewer to the Huguenot Hills neighborhood. It's over 50% complete. Should be anticipated to begin for sewer in the spring of this year. And we think by the end of 24, substantial completion will be done. So this year, we should hope to see most of the Huguenot Hills project underway and then completed. Roads. We all want to know about roads, what's going on with our roads. Well, let's start over toward the center part of the county, the Fairground to Sandy Hook roads. You know, that was the traffic circle. And those of you who've had a chance to drive through the traffic circle, I know when it was first being built, when it was first open, people had a lot of fun with it on Facebook and social media. Well, now that it's open, it's going pretty smoothly. People seem to like it. It goes well. You very rarely see traffic backed up. Moving on from there, though, the Fairground Road extension. The original project had Fairgrounds going all the way to Highway 6. Well, cost for the project came in higher than anticipated. The funding wasn't there, so we had to cut the extension part off initially. Well, funding has now been secured for that, so now the engineering is underway to continue the extension all the way to Highway 6. We would anticipate completion in February of 28. Now, the thing with road projects, I think y'all know, they're never slow. So any project that we start talking about it, you can anticipate a 3 to 4 year window from when we start talking to hopefully when we're done. So when we say engineering is underway, that's always a great sign. This is the beginning. Engineering can take a while. You don't see anything happening, but it is. Because the engineers are out there working, they're surveying, they're drawing up everything that needs to do. So when you see engineering underway, that's a good sign. The DDI, the Ashland Road I-64 DDI. Again, engineering is underway. The funding has been secured for that. We would anticipate that will be completed in 31. That's about a 7-year project. As you know, any kind of an interstate project is significant and it's major. Building major overpasses over I-64, both sides leading up to it. When it's done, it'll have a significant impact on traffic flowing on the Ashland Road corridor to I-64 and from I-64. Part of that separate part is the parking lot. So that is being relocated. That was a project that was funded separately from the Divergent Diamond, and it'll be completed in 28. And so they need some of the land that's on currently, so they're going to do that, get it done in 28, and then keep working on the Divergent Diamond. Important, probably more to y'all, the Hockett Road realignment. Again, what that's going to do is take Hockett Road heading north. Right now, it runs into the stoplight at Food Line. You hang a right, then you hang a left to get to the interstate. The realignment part is going to put a traffic circle in and take you straight over to the stoplight to take you to the interstate. So it'll be a straight shot to the interstate, more or less. You won't have to make that zigzag. The good news is right now, everything from VDOT tells us the stoplight to Food Line is going to stay here as well. So if you want to keep going to Food Line, you can still do it. Get to the stoplight, things will be simple there. But that's going to be a major impact on traffic to the north side of Hockett Road. Completion there, again, 29, but again, engineering is underway. So that's what you want to see. Now, some of the Highway 288 issues we're dealing with, we have started a study for the new Route 288 interchange. So this is a long range. This is a study to see with growth of traffic on 288. So this is about a 20-year window for this one. So you start with the studies to understand the impact of growth and what you need to do so we can anticipate what's going to happen. So we started a study for there. That's one that we'll be aware of. It's not a short-term project, but at some point, we would look to go ahead and build that new interchange on 288, take traffic off of the Wilkes Ridge Parkway, and remove a lot of traffic off of the 250 corridor. Another one that is underway, the Oilville Road, I-64. If you get off at Oilville Road ever heading towards the courthouse, you know, traffic can back up at rush hour all the way onto the interstate and beyond. Funding has been significantly achieved for this. We're still looking for the last little bit of it. It'll alleviate the traffic capacity issues there, and we would anticipate now that upon securing the final allocation this year, that again about February 28th, that'll be done. So when that happens, we're going to have like 3 traffic circles in this county all of a sudden. So we'll go from having none to having 3. And, you know, that I think people will see as we get them, the traffic moves so much smoother and so much quicker. Now, one of the things that people in this part of the county have been fortunate, but not all the county has been, that's our broadband. The Board of Supervisors several years back made a very significant commitment to do everything they could to get broadband across the county. Working with partners, you know, our Firefly partners, you see Dominion Energy, you see Rappahannock Electric, you see Thomas Jefferson Planning District. Those are the partners that we've been working with, Fort Amy and the Crozier and the courthouse area. Significant funds from the state government, the federal government, matched with county funds have made this happen. So the fiber service is going to be available currently on all CVEC, and also Dominion Energy is finishing their middle mile part. A lot of this fiber is going to be on Dominion utilities, on their poles. They're not going to provide the service, but it's going to be in their right of way. So it requires Dominion to be part of it. So getting that middle mile completed so then they can connect it from there to people's houses. You're going to start seeing various programs through. The map's kind of small to see from here. We'll be giving you information, go online if you want to see where the various areas are. But I can tell you that I live in kind of the far western part of the county and in the thriving community of Fife. And I saw them start to string wire in my neighborhood. So when Fife and those parts of the county are seeing wire being strung, you know, things are happening. Now, one of the biggest things that people have always asked us, of course, is when are we going to get a Chick-fil-A? Then they said, well, when are we going to get a Publix? You know, when are we going to get a Cracker Barrel? Well, one step at a time. But the addition of new business is critical to Goshen County, and I'll tell you why. We have one of our overarching goals is to be an 85% county of rural, agrarian, and 15% commercial development. That's something the board said years ago that still is important to us. Well, in order to maintain an 85% rural feeling, you've got to have that 15% coming in commercial, industrial, in order to help pay the bills. Otherwise, all the cost goes on the homeowners, and it becomes unaffordable to live. So that 15% in the designated growth areas of the county is very important. These are examples of some things that have just come in recently. Several vets, again, Industrial Tap House just opened this past week. Chick-fil-A, several others that are under construction right now throughout the county. What does this look like? The last 8 years, over $500 million of commercial investment has happened in this county. And we need to keep having that level of investment going forward in order to keep this county as affordable as we can. Because the cost of public safety, the cost of education, the cost of everything is going up. And this is part of the critical role that economic development plays, is making sure that we can afford to provide the services that our citizens tell us they want. So this is a great sign right there, $500 million. But we also want people to come to Goshen. We want to see it. So the board adopted a tourism strategic plan back in January of last year. If you go on the website, exploregoochland.com, and we've got a variety of things. We've got day trip ideas. We're really pushing, working with our business partners in this community of things that you can do. Day trips, girls' weekends, guys' weekends, fun things that you can do, places you can stay, places you can eat. You know, one of the things that we're known for is our craft beverages. So we promote that. We were part of this past summer. We call it the Red, White, and Brew, and working with some of our surrounding counties, people would go and visit various craft beverages, and they'd be able to get a stamp, and if they went to all of them over the course of the summer, not of course the day, of course. And they get a t-shirt and fun stuff like that. Just encouraging people to come out and see some of the things that we have in Goochland. We've got an app, encourage you to put it on. Our guide to food, beverage, and fun. It can give you discounts. It can also give you a better idea of what's open, well, you know, what's playing, live music. So that's something which we provide for our citizens. Something else that's being offered by our EDA is a rewards program. If you shop in Goochland County and you have this app, if you just go ahead and take a picture of your receipt, load it up, you'll get a 5% cashback reward that you can spend anywhere in Goochland County. It's just cash. You don't have to do anything but take a picture of the receipt on your app. Our EDA is sponsoring this. It's a neat way to help our local businesses and encourage you to keep shopping with our local businesses. So it's something that EDA has come up with to help make this a community, a place where small business can be successful as well. If you're a small business person thinking about it, encourage you to look at this. May 24, our Business Appreciation Month. May 7th, we're going to have an option by the board. And then on May 15th, at Kindred Spirits, there's going to be a business appreciation event. All of y'all with businesses, look forward to you participating and coming out. We did it last year. It was a great turnout. It was a neat event. Kind of things we like to do. What else is going on in Goochland? Well, Goochland Day. Now, you know, we're exceptionally fortunate that the Goochland Day Foundation, the volunteers, put on for us Goochland Day. It's going to be May 17th and 18th this year. May 17th is the first time we're doing a Friday night park, and then all day Saturday on the 18th, the parade. It's just fun. Those of you who haven't had a chance to see, I tell people that I've been here about 2 years now. And after about a year, I was calling, talking to my family and all, said, it's amazing. Goochland County is a Hallmark movie set. They literally must film all the movies here because we have the festivals, we have the Fall Fest, we have the Fireworks Fest, we have the Goochland Day, we have the Nights of Tucker. So, at Fall Fest, you look out, I guarantee you, there's some lady from New York who had to come back home to take care of her aging parents, and she met her old boyfriend from high school. And eventually they're going to get back together. That's what we do here. So Goochland Day, May 17th and 18th, our Parks and Rec. One of the things we're really proud about is we added Leaks Mill to the Virginia Bird and Wildlife Trails Green Springs Loop late last year. And, when we talk about attracting people to Goochland, the natural beauty we have is one of our strongest resources. Bird watching is something that people will drive hundreds of miles to come and if they hear there's a particular bird here. So these are some of the birds recently we've seen. Additionally, we've got over 9 miles of trails. If you have a chance to go to our Leaks Mill Park, and mountain bikes come from around the southeast to ride the bike trails at Leaks Mill Park. Again, the kind of things we're doing to get people here. What else? I can mention the 4th of July Festival, the pickleball tournament, 2 nights of Tucker events where we got live music, we have food trucks. It's a great time for your family and friends to come out. So I say all that to say that Goochland is an amazing place. And when I say it's a great day in Goochland, now you see why I say stuff like that. So I started by saying thank you for being here, and it means a lot that you're here. So how can you get involved? Well, obviously you're involved already by being here. Talk to us. Let us know what we're doing good. Let us know what you'd like to see different. You can always try to see about getting on a board or a commission, volunteer. Again, come to events like this. Come to some of these events I just showed you. They're fun. They're great. Obviously vote, run for office. We are fortunate to have dedicated civil servants working for you, but your public servants who run for office, they're the ones who really put themselves out on the line. They're the ones who get out there and go door to door, and they're your person. So I encourage you always to think about that as well. Currently, we have openings on the following boards and commissions. Look at that. If you're interested in serving some, you think you may have, we're filling some of them now, but we always end up with openings for the course of the year. And finally, how can you keep abreast? Well, we start with our county mobile app. Please put that on your phone. It gives you a lot of ability to keep up with what we're doing. We also give you updates and alerts and notifications. You can sign up to be notified about certain things maybe related to planning and zoning, community development, public safety. You know, if you have that, of course, you gotta have the sheriff's app. Which I hope all of y'all have the sheriff's app. It's an amazing way to keep track of what's going on in your neighborhood, on roads especially. It's one of the great services they do is they tell you the roads are open or closed, bad weather hits. So you want to put that on your phone as well. We've got, as a handout when you came in, there's a listing of all these places so you can pick it up. You can follow us on social media. Code Red is something I'd strongly encourage. If you don't have it, Code Red is our emergency notification to tell you when something has happened that you need to know. It's going to be generally some public safety related. It can be bad weather. When we had a water main break, it's letting you know about the condition and status of that. It could be Amber Alerts. It could be a variety of things. But Code Red, I strongly encourage you to do that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over, right there. But if there's any quick questions that I can answer, I don't want to get too deep because I want to give Dr. Camardi, and then we'll also take questions after the end of it. But yes, ma'am.
I was wondering what counties get with 80% from the state government? Is that the high population?
It's generally going to be more based on their level of affluence or perceived affluence. So I think that's one of the big conditions are that. And again, Dr. Camardi will probably know, but I think it's income levels drive most of that.
Do you anything for the historic buildings that we have here maintaining?
No, ma'am. All right, with that, then I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Camardi.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Good evening. My name is Michael Cromartie, and my passion is our public schools. Mr. Carpenter shared some what should be good news coming out of the General Assembly today. That sometime over the next couple of days, they're going to announce that the House and the Senate have broken a deal, and they're going to tell us that that deal means a significant bit to public schools in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And it might mean a significant bit to someone's public schools. It won't as much to our public schools, and I'll tell you why. First of all, how many of you have children or grandchildren in our public schools? Okay, very good, very good. For the rest of you, I'm going to take you on a wonderful ride talking and bragging about all the wonderful things going on in Goochland County Public Schools. But before I do that, I want to talk about how schools are funded. Goochland has a local composite index of 0.80. 0.8. Does anyone care to guess what the highest possible local composite index is?
0.8. What is it?
0.8. It is, I'm glad you asked. It is a 0.8. So what that basically means is that the state sees the local ability to fund public education 80% to rest on the locality and the 20% to be supplemented by state and federal governments and other means. So when they talk about the monies that are going to be released to public education to fund a 3% pay increase for staff, that shakes out to be about $100,000 for Goochland County. Keep your eyes peeled for what it means for Henrico. When you heard a little while back that this All in Virginia money to help struggling students for tutoring was unveiled across the state to the tune of some $460 some odd million. Goochland County's slither of that was $236,000. Henrico County, comparatively, $17 million. So when the General Assembly says that they've earmarked money to advance public education in the Commonwealth of Virginia, that's not necessarily false. It does help places that have demonstrated a lower ability to pay from the locale, but doesn't mean as much for Goochland County. It's important to know. So I just want to talk to those of you who don't have kids in the schools, sort of introduce our programs to you. Our core values are excellence, creativity, courage, honor, and optimism. Our core goals: to maximize each student's academic potential every day, to maximize resources for instruction, and to improve the climate of our organization. That's the overall organizational health, which I'll talk about in a little bit. Our vision is to inspire the next generation to make a positive impact. I challenge our staff every single day to train and prepare the kinds of neighbors that you would like to have, the kinds of citizens that you'd like to have in their communities, our communities. The mission of our school division is maximizing the potential of every learner, every single one of them. And we do make every decision with the best interest of students in mind. So if you take a look at our enrollment, we hover and have hovered historically, at least over the last decade or so, somewhere around 2,600 students. You look at the last academic year, and that year was an anomaly. I've not really put my finger on why that year was so outstanding. The best that I can conclude as someone coming in was that we likely had a very large cohort to graduate, and the kindergarten cohort that entered was small. But even having said that, we hover somewhere around 2,600 students. I want to talk to you about how the effectiveness of our public schools impact housing markets in Goochland County. The reputation and academic performance of schools have a direct impact on home values in that community. And this is not me making up statistics, they're attributed here. National statistics show that the average difference in home prices between high-performing and low-performing districts is about $205,000 per house. Homes in top-performing districts sell an average of 8 days faster and receive 26% more views than the average listing. Not only am I your superintendent, I'm someone who in the last 7 months has purchased a home in Goochland County. I can tell you that these things are true. Our impact or influence on the local economy. Funding our public schools is a long-term investment strategy, even for students without school-age children. Quality schools tend to maintain stability, even in challenging economic times, and homes in well-performing school districts are more resilient to market fluctuations, as we see every day in the communities throughout our county. Investments in education pave the way for a highly skilled and innovative workforce that drives economic development, and reputable schools attract the kind of businesses that Mr. Carpenter covets for that 15%. So now I want to brag a little bit about our schools. Goochland County's public schools, we are recognized for meaningfully integrating virtual reality into teaching and learning. All 5 of our schools in this county are Apple Distinguished Schools. There are fewer than 400 total across the country. We've got 5 of them right here in Goochland. All 5, by the way. Not one left out. For 6 years in a row, Niche indicates that Goochland County's public schools are the best in the Metro Richmond area. That takes into account Hanover, Henrico, Chesterfield, Richmond, the best in the metro area. 6 years in a row. We're a nationally recognized Special Olympics Unified Champion School Division. We've gotten for many years running the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award, offered by the Government Finance Officers Association. Goochland is one of 10 school divisions across the Commonwealth of Virginia that has all of its schools fully accredited for over a decade. That's something we should all be proud of. And that work doesn't come easily. Regarding student growth, the pink line here is the national average. The bar graphs represent where our students are coming in for achieving or actualizing their growth goals. 2nd grade through 11th grade. Goochland's been a leader in assessing growth. We've been in that game for elementary students for the last 11 years and for students in the secondary schools for the last 5. That was reading. We go back. It's going forward. Let's try this. Sorry about that. I usually don't have a clicker that works. It has to stand on a machine. I'm amazed. It's nice. So the data that I showed you a minute ago, those were literacy data. They pertain to reading. These data pertain to mathematics. As you can see, with the exception of 6th grade, once again, we are well outpacing national averages in student growth. It is my greatest hope and anticipation that next year when I'm standing before you, that 6th grade line is above the pink. And we will again have all of our grades operating above national averages for student growth goals. Our graduation rates are exemplary. Better than any I've seen, and I've been a lot of places. All for good reason. For the last 8 years running, we post graduation rates at 95% or higher. This is an on-time graduation rate. It doesn't mean that our dropout rate is 5%. It doesn't mean that at all. Sometimes we have students who don't graduate within the 4 years, but they do complete with a high school diploma. Sometimes we have students that go the GED route and gain their credential that way. But we're doing a magnificent job in matriculating kids kindergarten through 12th grade. So, in a place that's so wonderful, what could you possibly need? Folks, I'm here tonight to tell you that there's an urgency in public education in our country. Enrollment in undergraduate programs is dwindling from people who are trained and set out to be teachers. Folks are opting to do other things. Folks who have been teachers since the pandemic have opted to take jobs in the private sector. And all of these things merge and have merged over time to contribute to a diminishing of the workforce. This chart in front of you indicates where our schools are in regional compensation. If you are green, that's really, really wonderful. If it's yellow, that means we're right at the average. But if it's red, that means that we're in the lower half in regional compensation. And you can see that in 2017, we were in the top 3 in the region for staff years 0 to 15 of service. Look at where we are in 2023. We have a yellow starting out, and we have to be competitive starting out, otherwise we couldn't recruit people. And then everything else falls in the lower portion of the region in terms of teacher compensation. Now, I hope you're asking yourself as I do, how do we have all of these savory, wonderful outcomes and rank the way that we do in paying our highly skilled and qualified staff, whom without we couldn't have the outcomes? Mid-year resignations are up 120% this year. That does not coincide with my arrival. It doesn't. That does not coincide with the election of a new school board. When we exit survey folks who leave us, almost always, it's attributed to compensation and distance. 58% of our workforce lives outside of the county. Some of them drive across 2 school divisions to arrive to us. And I'll tell you why they've done that historically in a little while, and why those variables are losing ground. We've lost folks to the private sector at raises of $20,000 to $30,000 more than they were making as classroom teacher. What breaks my heart, we recently lost a Spanish teacher to a private school. Once upon a time, that never happened. Once upon a time, public education in terms of teacher compensation by head and shoulders outpaced what private schools were able to pay. Not only was he a Spanish teacher, he's my daughter's Spanish teacher, and we haven't been able to replace him. And kids who have that Spanish teacher are now learning Spanish from a teacher somewhere else in the country virtually, and it's not going wonderful. I know because I have a child who's experiencing that. That's our reality, 120%. This scale, once upon a time, not very long ago, the variables that are on the left would have outweighed the variables that are on the right. People love this school division because of our comfortable class sizes, which we still have, because we give teachers autonomy. We don't thumb them down. We give them the opportunity to be creative and to experiment and to teach their passions. We have supportive leadership at the building and central office level. And I can tell you from having worked in larger school systems, we have a lot less bureaucracy here in Goochland, a lot less red tape, a lot fewer hoops to jump through to do your job. But more increasingly, those variables, which are all good, are being outweighed by teacher commutes, salary, which we talked about, the instructional calendar, which we worked hard to fix and align, inflation, which we have no control over, but we must be prepared to respond to, housing. I have an elementary teacher at Goochland Elementary School who lives outside of the county with 2 roommates, 3 of them sharing an apartment. She's recently had to move out of that apartment for which they were splitting rent by thirds to move back home with her parents because she couldn't afford to pay 1/3 of the rent. This is a working profession. This is a teacher. Hiring incentives and private sector pay. So we're grateful that our budget this year, supported by the county, does include a 5% compensation increase for all staff. Some may call that a raise, some may call that a cost of living adjustment. But either way you slice it, that is good for our employees, and we're proud of that. The total investments that we've requested from the county and thankfully have been delivered total about $2.3 million. And this reflects a 5.7% increase over last year's asks and investments to public education by the county. As you can see, we've had a significant decrease in the amount of federal dollars that we have. And there was once upon a time, not very long ago, when we had lots of COVID funds. Those funds have expired, and we essentially have until September 30th to spend the remainder of those dollars. Much like what Mr. Carpenter shared with you a little bit earlier, over 77% of our total budget is dedicated to instruction and technology to support teachers in their instructional goals. 77%. 7.1% goes to administration and health, about 7% to transportation, keeping our buses well maintained and on the road, 9% to operations, and a little under 7% to technology. When we take a look at funding sources, the county transfer recommended an increase of $2.122 million over the fiscal year 2024 budget. The county transfer increased from 68% to 70% of our total budget, with that $29 million representing the lion's share of that amount. Next to that is state grants that we apply for each year. We have state sales tax, which they refer to as hold harmless, and right now have not been awarded to locales. I pray that part of what comes out tomorrow or Saturday will release those hold harmless funds to locales for public schooling. The green indicates about 4% for federal grants, and then that slither of purple, that's other monies that we bring in. Believe it or not, there are people in surrounding counties who pay tuition to have their children go to school here. Not a lot of them, but we do have about 37, 38 families who live in other places who pay us to educate their students. That also speaks to the strength of our schools. This graph indicates a 10-year trend of revenue sources. Now, if you're looking at this, you're probably thinking, this gentleman is standing there talking about school funding, and it's a record level of funding for public schools. Folks, we should be able to say that every single year. Every single year, we should be able to say that we're funding our public schools at a higher rate than we did the previous year. It's the only way that they continue to thrive. And when your total additional investments match your total additional revenue, you have what we call a balanced budget. I'm proud to share with you that we do have a balanced budget for our public schools. I hope that it will become a part of the overall budget of the county. The total school budget grew by 5.65% over the previous fiscal year. I didn't get everything. These are some of the things that I'd like to have, that I won't forget about, but I understand that we can't have. We projected a 9% increase for health insurance costs for employees. Those numbers came in at an actual 11%. To bridge the gap of the 2 percentage points will cost about $120,000 additional dollars. We're in conversations about a market adjustment pool for our teachers only. We employ 234 classified teachers. This market pool adjustment will benefit me and people classified as administrators, 0. Only our teachers. So that we can rise to the median of the region. Not the top, but the median. And there's a school of thought that suggests, well, as soon as we raise our salaries, the bigger places are only going to raise theirs, so we're not going to gain any ground. I don't know about that, but I do know this. If we do 5% and they do 5%, the gap never closes. In fact, it widens. Their 5% is typically on a larger number. More funding for new textbooks based on the Virginia Literacy Act and new math SOL standards, or SOQ standards, excuse me. Mr. Carpenter said something that was very profound a while ago, and all of us in government know it. Mandates come down from Richmond, not a far trickle to here, but sometimes they don't come with dollars. We're now under the Virginia Literacy Act, which means that we've got to overhaul our literacy textbooks throughout the school division. The initial quote for the first selection came in at $430,000 to advance the Virginia Literacy Act. Now, I am a proponent of the Virginia Literacy Act. It basically is a return to what all of us already knew, and that's that you teach literacy through phonics. Not a whole language, which they tried, and that cost, and then we came right back around to teaching literacy the way that we traditionally have. 3 additional interventionists or reading specialists, 1 for every elementary school, would mean a lot. Secondary special education teachers at the middle and high school to reduce caseloads. Caseloads for special education teachers at our secondary schools are north of 20 students each. That's IEP management, that's collaboration management, that's organizing teams, all of the things that go into being a special education teacher. Filling the gap on deferred maintenance and vehicle replacements because of less CIP funding this year. That would be or could be a $1 million ask. I asked the average age of a school bus in our fleet and was told 15 years. That's a long time. Now one may say, well, they still run, don't they? Absolutely they still run. They do. A new school bus now costs $140,000 for 1 bus. They're outfitted with air conditioning and comforts and amenities. We have some that have hundreds of thousands of miles. We spoke about our new elementary school. This is an aerial photo of that school on the day we had a dusting of snow. It's really a beautiful, beautiful facility. If you've not seen it, I encourage you to drive by it. I want to talk to you about the age of the existing schools. The existing Goochland Elementary School was built in 1957. It did have a renovation in '69. It has no gym and no art and music room. Kids have to walk across the parking lot to go to the Parks and Rec gymnasium facility to have physical education. While we may be thinking, well, that's not altogether terrible, it is in fact a short walk. But it does take that facility out of utilization for the community during the day because we're using it for instructional space, or at least we have it. The new school does have a gymnasium. Bird Elementary School was built in '58, Randolph in '58, and you see renovations and additions have been done along the way, along with the school capacities. Our high school is a little over 20 years old, built with a capacity of 988 students. We're somewhere around 840 in that building now with room to grow. And the middle school, as you all well know, came along a little bit after. The Career Workforce and Development Center was built in '97. That's right there beside, it's adjacent to the elementary school, in between the county administration building and GES. And we have a fleet of 59 buses and 64 vehicles for public use. The majority of those are fully depreciated, as just mentioned. We occupy the Oilville Garage, which was built in 1989. That is a county-owned facility as of 2013. So, with the opening of the new Goochland Elementary School, we're going to pull about 40 students from the Bird Elementary Zone in the northwestern end of the county. 80 to 100 students will come from areas not out as far as Mannequin, but the rest of the Randolph Elementary School zone here in the southeastern portion of the county. The new school is 105,000 square feet. The existing GES is about 35,000 square feet. So we're gaining 70,000 square feet of instructional space. That school has a capacity to hold about 650 students. We will start next year with just a shade under 500. It did cost $55 million. Not all of that went into the physical structure. About $11 million of those dollars went to preparing the land that school sits on to be able to accommodate a school. That's important information. We do have a $55 million project. We do not have a $55 million school. We have closer to a $45 million school. This new school is going to open for staff and students this fall. The project is currently under budget and has allowed the county to improve related roads and stormwater management ponds around the school. We're going to have a ribbon cutting that I invite all of you to join us at on July the 18th from 4 to 7 o'clock, where you can come and witness this project firsthand. We have other funded capital improvement projects. Randolph Elementary School recently received a whole school generator at the cost of $540,000. If that did not happen, with the frequency of power outages, every time we have a power outage that exceeded 30 minutes, we have to load kids on buses and get them out of campus. When we do that, we've got to send robocalls and have parents of young children to leave their jobs and place of employment, many of them not close by, to come home to attend to their children. This generator allows us to keep on business as usual, even when there are power outages. We've had HVAC replacements at the high school. That will complete this summer. Byrd Elementary School is going to get a roof replacement beginning this summer, a much needed roof replacement for Byrd. I saw the principal of Byrd last night, and I told him, with all of this rain, we must have little ducklings up there. He said, we're making it as best we can. We just keep moving the box. Not the way schooling's supposed to be done. Bus and vehicle replacements. We talked about it. Electric buses are the thing now. Electric buses. I know. Hey, I don't make the rules, I just try to exist within them. Electric buses. They cost comparable to traditional school buses, but they do still cost no less. These are unfunded CIP needs, lighting upgrades at the high school, maintenance pool with carpet and ceiling replacements, cafeteria equipment. Some of the cafeteria equipment in our schools was purchased and installed in 1991. Now, for those of you who are thinking, does it still work? Yes, it still works, somewhat. But for context, the superintendent who's standing here talking to you could have used those things in 1991 as a student. He turned 50 in June. That's a long time for equipment to continue to be maintained, and not all of it is eco-friendly. Parking lot repairs at Byrd. I was at Byrd today. It's very tight. There's not a lot of parking. Had Byrd had more parking, we likely would have been able to have school on the 4th, when we learned that our school was being used as a presidential primary polling place. The parking situation at Byrd was a major factor in deciding to call it a day for students, because we couldn't accommodate pollsters, people who are coming to vote, as well as students and staff. Field improvements at our high school. Our high school has super competitive teams. We just recently had a state championship wrestler and 2 state champions in track and field. We need field improvements. Upgrade 1958 bathrooms at Randolph Elementary School. An engineering project management for the CTE edition that's currently included in the capital improvements plan. Ms. Carpenter did relay that we are going to be on the receiving end of $1.2 million for capital improvements. That is up a $4.9 million ask. We're in the business of building brighter futures. I hope that whether you have a child or grandchild in our schools or not, that you will engage with us. We are doing quality work for this community. And the reputation of our schools spans the state. I cut my teeth in public education in Hampton Roads and out there with much larger school divisions like Newport News, where I was a principal, and Portsmouth, where I was a chief. Even there, we hear about the success of Goochland County. I remarked to 2 administrators, or 2 supervisors today, Goochland County punches up. We punch up. We punch well out of our weight class. But we can't continue to do that if we don't take care of the prize staff that help us achieve those feats. I appreciate your attention tonight, and if there are any questions, I will gladly answer. Yes, ma'am.
So I'm going to do 2 community meetings about neighborhoods, of which the projected is going to be 500 children.
Yeah.
I have no idea where, they have not been approved, but that's the projected number. If you sit and you walk in Riceville County on 3 Chop Road and see all the kids in those townhouses, I counted 90 children getting off those buses.
Easily,
This is
one
a
subdivision.
lot. Yes, this is a lot of children coming in. Do we have a space that we're going to build a new school for these kids?
So what we've done is we've got the new elementary school that's going to have the capacity for about 200 more students who will arrive this fall, And we've taken students out of Byrd and Randolph, so there's extra capacity created at each of those buildings as well. The new school overall should give us the ability to accommodate about 280 additional students. Now, here's the kicker. There is projected growth of the county's population. School population is also evolving, but at a much slower clip. If we get into a situation where we have young families with school-aged children who are taking a liking to our $850,000 houses and have the ability to come and buy these houses with children, we are going to be looking at a situation. We are.
Well, I'm
Particularly,
projected 400 to start with.
Yes.
400. It's going to bring in a lot of kids. You just need to sit behind the bus and right on and watch.
that's right. That's right. And we've got to be ready to face that growth. Yes, sir.
The school system had a great donation of $100,000 holder.
Yes,
That was wonderful.
it was.
You know, if we can get more of those kind of things to happen. And also, my big deal is, I do not have any school-age children that are in Goochland, citizen of Goochland. What can we do as citizens to help Goochland County schools?
Sir, I am glad that you asked that question. I think the best way to advocate for public schools as they exist now is to support measures that compensate teachers, to verbally and passionately support efforts that compensate teachers. We can't continue to lose qualified, skilled teachers at the rate that we've lost them this year. And I jokingly said a bit ago that coincides with my arrival. I would rather they be leaving because they hate me. I could fix that. I can turn that around like that. But I need your help in turning around some of the other variables that contribute to our teachers leaving us at a much faster rate. Yes, sir.
The new CTE building, is this going to be in addition to the existing building that's being?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. This will be an addendum to an annex at the high school.
Do you have a functioning CTE committee, advisory committee?
We do.
And how often do they meet during the year?
I believe that the CTE advisory meets quarterly, 4 times a year.
4 times a year. Okay. The other thing is, I had heard that you might be looking at year-round schools?
No, sir.
Okay.
No, sir. In fact, we had, and that's a good place for me to inject this information. We had done intercessions this past year. They were adopted and approved by the pre-existing board and superintendent, and they were funded with grant dollars. And that was the second week in October where kids had intercession, and some kids could opt to stay home and not participate, and some families frankly opted to take vacation during that week. The intercessions came at a real cost of a little bit over $300,000, which was funded last year with grant funds. Had we continued those intercessions, we would have had to roll those costs over into our operating budget. And while the data on intercession is still inconclusive, I can't tell you that it was wonderful or not wonderful, I don't know. But I can tell you that we could not absorb that expenditure.
Year-round schools are a nightmare,
Yeah,
on so many levels.
they are. And it's a non-starter conversation when you talk about underpaying teachers for 10 months, this stretch of the 12. That's a challenge. Yes, sir.
I have a 3-point question, I think, very simple. I know that we are not Fairfax County or Loudoun County, thank God. Inside, I see all the dollars and cents you're presenting, that's fine. Inside the school, here's my 3-point question, if you don't mind.
I don't.
Will the students learn the Pledge of Allegiance? Number 2, will they be in trouble if they bring a Bible to school? And number 3, are we going to have boys' bathrooms and girls' bathrooms?
So the answer to number 1, the Pledge of Allegiance is recited in all of our schools every single day. The answer to question number 2, we don't have policy forbidding any student to bring a Bible to school. And the answer to question number 3 is far more complex than we have time to get into tonight. I think I did okay, 2 out of 3. Yes, sir.
Just a few comments. Generally, it feels like the characteristics of behind is changing, so it's behind in schools. But I think we kind of add to our own problems. You mentioned about more students coming, but that requires more schools and more funding and bring more businesses in the development, kind of needs more public safety. It seems like we're kind of creating our own problems to change the characteristics of the counties. From the school standpoint, the stats you threw out, per student, you talk about some big numbers, Pratt would be a much bigger county. Per student, is that also as exaggerated as the dollar?
Sir, and I say this to offer you all factual numbers. Our per pupil expenditure ranks in the bottom third in the state. What we invest per student in our schools ranks in the bottom third in the state. And I shared with you that our perceived ability to pay, whether that's real or not, we can debate, but our perceived ability to pay is among the highest. So when you have a very high perceived ability to be able to fund your public schools, and you have a per pupil expenditure that's in the lower third of the state, and here, I will say this, and I don't want to overtake my time, I'm afraid I've already done that. But if the narrative is, well, look at how wonderful our schools have done traditionally, and we've managed to pull that off on the cheap. And that's true. I can't refute that, that's true. But there are things now that are changing in the field that if ignored over time are going to erode the success that we've built in this community with our schools. One of them is the most important one is teacher compensation. We can't pay what Henrico pays. I just told you, Henrico got $17 million of allocated state funds, from which we got $236,000 of the same pot. They've got resources that are boundless. We can't pay what we pay, but we can show our folks that we're going to invest something in them and get them comparable. I don't think any of them hold a realistic expectation of being paid higher than Henrico. But I do think that they all hold the expectation of being paid comparably here.
Just one more thought. It's basically maybe some creative solutions, no property tax, the teachers are exempt from property tax, or people that build housing for teachers. I mean, other ways to help address the compensation.
And something like that ultimately goes to the Constitution of the state of Virginia. So what the Constitution allows us to do, we can do right now. There are very limited exceptions for that. Right now, the General Assembly is I think they're passing it to the governor that would allow the widows of deceased war veterans to be exempt. So they're just getting to that stage of considering it. Yeah, that's something which, if we can do that for law enforcement, for firemen, for teachers, the loss to the county would be insignificant in the big picture. The benefit to them would be significant. But we would love to do some things like that. We can only do it in Virginia's is what they call a Dillon Rule state. And Dillon Rule means that you can only do what the General Assembly has specifically, word for word, told you can do, and you can't exceed from that. So if they say you can put a fee on this, it's going to be so limited in how you can do it. And so that's one of the very limiting realities of trying to do this in Virginia is the General Assembly holds all the power. And so we'll be up here and trying to explain the reality sometimes. And so that's a lot of taxes. Well, unfortunately, that's all they let us do is tax people. They don't give us, other states maybe give opportunities to generate revenue for public safety and things from different ways. It's like, I'm not saying we would put advertising on a police car, but some places do. We can't do that. So, long answer to your question. Ms. Amanda Adams is here tonight, our clerk of court, and she's got some really important information. So, Amanda, if you would. And also, Mr. Winfrey from District 3 came in for a while. His wife is home still recovering, so he had to leave, but he made it as well. So I'm sorry I didn't introduce him. Ms. Adams.
Good evening. Really quick, I'm just going to give you some information from my side of the courthouse. It won't take a few minutes. I know everybody's ready to go home. So, let's see here. All right, so first of all, I just want to let everybody know that we now have an oversized plat scanner in the courthouse. So I know if anybody has been over at the clerk's office and if you need to get a scan of your plat, you normally had to just piece it out and get just regular size, but now we have an oversized plat scanner so you can get the whole big plat now. So I just wanted to let everybody know that that's there. Also, we're going to start doing online concealed handgun permits. So you can still do it, come in and do it the traditional way, But I think that this is going to help out a lot of people who are not able to get into the office because they work and can't get into the office by 5 o'clock. So this will be coming soon, and we'll let you know when it's up and ready. And it's going to be the same process where you will have to submit the application online. You will have to have your driver's license or passport, and you'll have to show where you have competency of where you've taken a gun safety course. And I also just want to let everybody know that I will be doing an estate planning seminar up at the county admin on April 26th at 3 o'clock. And this will go over everything that you need to know about probate. I encourage everybody to have a will, and I would like to let everybody know my knowledge because it is a big topic, and I want to make sure all of the residents of Goochland are prepared because you never know when something will happen to you. So that's really all I have. Does anybody have any questions for me? Okay. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Adams.
You're welcome.
We have our sheriff here. Sheriff, is there anything that you wanted to say?
And I can answer and talk to people after you.
All right, well, we have a plethora, now, if I turn it over to you, I just said we have a plethora of county staff here.
Sure.
And would love for you all to talk to them as well. Mr. Lau?
Yes, sir. What you heard tonight you liked is great. My job is what you either didn't hear tonight or what you heard and didn't like. I'm not a masochist, but my job is to take the comments of what you heard and maybe you don't understand or you didn't like what you heard. And I am your voice and your conduit to try to get answers. Sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes the answer is something you don't like. But my job is to cut through some of the process to the degree that I'm able to. And that's my job. So I put my business cards out there at the table. Please take one. I told you I'm a boomer, but I do know how to text. I do take phone calls, and I certainly respond to emails. So my job is to help you navigate what we've got here in the county. We've got great staff. Everybody that I've met that works for the county wants to do the right thing and the best thing. Sometimes we just need to listen a little more actively to understand where the question's coming from. I've had questions back when we put screening up on utility lines, so we don't have to see some of the process out there. I've got a call from a client, well, they are a client. They've got a neighbor, an abandoned property with tires on it. How do we get the tires off the property next door? I've been told that's not really my job. I'm fixing potholes. But you know what? Sometimes it's the broken window process. If you take care of the little things, the big stuff starts to get better too. So please take my card. If you call after 10 o'clock, I'm not going to answer. You can call as early as 5:30 in the morning because I get up. But other than that, my job is to help you enjoy what I think is probably the crown jewel of Central Virginia, which is Goochland Jail. So, Mr. Carpenter, I can wind it out.
That's it, guys. Again, thank you for coming. It does truly mean a lot. I think you heard tonight. You've got passionate people in this organization. We have Parks and Rec, we have public safety, we have law enforcement, we have utilities, we have finance, we have sheriff, we have clerk of court here. If you got questions, come grab us. That's what we're here for. Thank you all very much. Appreciate you.
That's true.